about stress-free discipline, basically positive discipline. I work for Community Mental Health on a part-time basis. I teach parenting classes, and then I'm an independent contractor with the Great Start Regional 4Cs office in Hastings. I cover Berry County and Calhoun County and parts of Kalamazoo County. And we just work with licensed and registered daycare providers and also relative and daycare aides. So I do trainings for them, and I help everybody do what they need to do to meet the state requirements. Okay? So before we get started, tonight, if you brought kids, they're going to be learning some activities, and I think you'll have a note to take home. But it talks about what the kids are learning while you're in class. Okay? The topic tonight is different people, different choices. And so they'll be watching a video, they'll be doing a lot of different activities and stuff. So they'll be taken well care of. Please remind me to pick up your surveys before you leave, and then also remind me to give you your post surveys, okay? Because I will forget. So, okay. One more piece of business. The bathrooms, I think, are over on the other part of the building. Is everybody familiar with that? And I'm going to pass around this piece of paper. We had to cancel one of the last classes because of snow, and we don't have the list of people who wanted to sign up again for that class. We do have a date for that. So if you could put your name, if you're interested in taking that class, put your name, and if you have an email address, put that on it. Also put your phone number. So, and remind me to pick this up again before you leave, okay? All right, I think we can get started. So, a lot of things to do. Okay, when I'm going to talk about the difference between discipline and punishment, because a lot of times people put the words punishment and discipline that they mean the same thing. And so I'm going to show you the difference between that, because there really is a difference. And then we're just going to talk about how to teach our kids to grow up to be responsible adults, because that's our job to do that with children. And we're going to talk about the different types of parents that you could be. Some have too much fun. So anyway, it makes the class fun. So we're going to talk about things like that. And we're going to talk about the different parenting styles. And I think you all kind of know what type of parent you are, but I'm going to break it down to make it a little bit easier for you. And we're going to talk about how too much punishment, what that tends to cause children to react to the way that you're parenting. So I'm going to start the class out with just a couple questions. When you walk into a room and your children see you and they make eye contact with you, what do they do? Okay, you're in the right class. If they cry, if they're at daycare and you come to pick them up and they start crying, that's a good sign, because they don't want to go home. They're happy. They love it there. They're not ready to go home. So that's a good sign. But if you walk into your own home and they see you and they start crying, then we need to address that, and I'll give you my phone number for that. So my daughter was one of those that would cry when I walked in. No. So no, what we want when our kids when we walk into the room, we want our kids to say, Mommy, Daddy, you know, and be real happy and excited to see us, because that makes us feel good, and we feel, oh yeah, they missed us, you know. But then you have to turn it around and say, what is the expression on your face when you walk into the room after you've not seen your kids all day long? Is it like, hurry up, get your coat on, let's go, we gotta go? Or is it, oh my God, how are you? Did you have a good day? Give Mommy a hug, you know. We want to have the same expression on our faces when we see our kids as what we want to see on their faces. So think about that, you know. I had a mom in my daycare many, many years ago that she was the nicest woman to all the other kids in the daycare. She would get out of the car and she would go and find a child and hug them and say, "Oh, sweetie, how are you?" And her kids are standing over there saying, "What? I'm here," you know. And she wouldn't even acknowledge her own kids, you know. And so that caused her kids to react in a negative way. They might go and push that child away. "That's my mommy," you know. And then she would hug the other child and say, "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry that so-and-so did that to you," you know, and just completely ignoring her children. And her children were so happy to see her at the beginning. And then after many months of this, they didn't even acknowledge her when she came to pick them up anymore. And I always thought that was pretty sad. And that's not what we want. We want our kids to be happy to see us. We should be happy to see our kids too, because they're looking at us. We're their role models. And so if we are happy to see them and are very loving and say the right words to them, we're teaching them to do the same to us or other people, you know. So we have to watch what we do, you know, with our kids. So, and positive discipline is so important. And we can all look back over our lives and say, "Oh, I wish I would have done that. I shouldn't have done this. I should have done more of this." I think we've all made mistakes, and all children are different. So some children are easy, and other children are more strong-willed, and it's a little more difficult to deal with them. And what works with one child doesn't work with the other child. My son, I could just give him a look. They called it the mean eye. You know, I'd give him the look, and he'd quit doing whatever it was that he was doing. I didn't have to say anything to him. That was his personality. My daughter didn't care about the look. She'd continue doing it anyway, you know. At 18, she still does the same thing. So we have to find out what works with our kids. And just because we've made some mistakes, has anybody here made any mistakes when they were raising their children? Just a couple. Okay, this is good. Okay. It's never too late. It's never too late. It doesn't matter if they're now 21 and 18. We can still be a positive parent to our children. So it's never too late. That's what I tell myself anyway. It's never too late. I can make up to this. So I think what I'm going to start out, and I think I have your handouts in the same order that I have mine, I'm pretty sure. So the first page that I have is to tell you the difference between discipline and punishment. At the top it says positive discipline for parents. And so discipline, what we mean by discipline is teaching our kids. Okay, discipline is to teach our children. Okay, punishment hurts. Punishment could hurt physically or it could hurt emotionally. Okay, we need to treat our kids with respect. I hear a lot of parents and myself, when I had a teenager, a daughter who was a little disrespectful. Can anybody relate to disrespect with kids? One can and one can't. Okay. So if we want our kids to be respectful, we need to teach them how to be respectful. So we need to be respectful to our kids. If we want our kids to listen to us when we're talking, instead of them rolling their eyes and like, "Oh, there she goes again," you know. If we want them to listen to us, we have to listen to them. Even if we don't think it's important to them. And we have to listen, and we have to be respectful and take the time to listen to them. And I know as being a parent, we're extremely busy. Maybe our life is a little chaotic, but we still have to take the time to listen to our kids, because there's going to come a time that they're going to be too busy for us. And that happens a lot faster than you think it's going to, you know, and some people in here have probably already experienced that. So we need to, if we can be positive in the way we discipline our children, talking with them, explaining why a certain behavior is not appropriate or that it is appropriate, then it's teaching them self-discipline. It's teaching them how to cooperate. Because if we're listening to them and taking the time to be with the kids, then they're going to be more cooperative. And they'll especially be more cooperative if when we're sitting down eating supper or having a family meeting. Does anybody have family meetings with their kids as a whole? Sometimes it's hit and miss. You can do it once a month, or you can do it every couple months, or, you know, it doesn't matter as long as you have it every once in a while. But if you have the kids help make some of the rules of your family, they're going to feel more a part of your family. And this is what I always told my kids. You know, if you do chores, you're going to feel more like part of this family. They never bought that. They never listened to that, you know. But it's true. But if they help make the decisions, and we can say yes or no, you know, but take their input, they're going to be more willing to follow through with the rules of the family. But if you have 900 rules, they're not going to remember them. They're counting on you to not remember them, you know. Until later they'll say, yeah, remember that rule about whatever? And it's like, oh, yeah, I forgot all about that one, you know. So just have a few major rules. And then be flexible as the kids grow older. One of my examples is I had a rule of 7 o'clock bedtime. That was my rule. And it was all summer long. That way it wasn't hard to readjust to getting ready for school again in the fall. It worked fine. And we did that for years and years and years and years. And my kids are getting older and older and older. And my son, who was very compliant, very willing to do whatever you asked him to do, he was fine with it. My daughter, even at 5, she says, this is stupid. You know, 7 o'clock, it's still light out, you know. But my son would just go to bed. When he was 14, he came to me and said, Mom, can I stay up a little bit later? And I said, no, our rule is 7 o'clock. You need your rest. He said, Mom, I'm 14. Like, oh, yeah, maybe you could stay up a little bit later. He didn't abuse it. By 8:30 or something, he was ready to go to bed because he had been going to bed for 14 years at 7 o'clock, you know, so he was tired. But you need to be flexible, and rules can change. Even if it's a real important rule, you can change them. You're the parent. You can change the rule for maybe one night or whatever. If Grandma and Grandpa are coming over and they only see them a couple times a year, you can make an exception. So rules can be changed. You need to be flexible with your rules. But it doesn't mean that they can whine you into it to change the rule. You need to stay steady with the decision. But what discipline is not, it's not humiliation. It's not disrespectful to the kids. And I always tell the parents in my community mental health class, you need to show respect to your children. You need to treat your children the way you would like to be treated. Our parents taught us that. What is that saying? I can't even. Pardon? Yeah, do unto others. You know, treat people the way you want to be treated. You know, and I ask everybody, do you remember being embarrassed or humiliated or hit in front of your friends or other people, you know? And a lot of people remember that. And I said, remember what that feels like. You know, just because these are little kids doesn't mean they don't have feelings. And so we need to treat these kids with respect. Because if we can do that, they'll in turn respect us a little bit more. Okay? We need to be firm with our kids. I'm not saying be a marshmallow, and I'll talk about that too later. But once kids realize that their misbehavior is not getting what they wanted, eventually they'll stop. And it may take a while, depending. Does anybody in here have a strong-willed child? It's tough, isn't it? It's hard. When we adopted our kids, and when our son, he was easy from day one. And I thought it was because we were such good parents. We were wonderful parents because look at the way he's acting. He's wonderful. It was because of us. So we decided, let's adopt again because we're wonderful parents. we get our daughter, and it's like, okay, I'm not such a good parent. I have to learn how to parent differently. And I'm not saying she's a bad kid, because she's not a bad kid by any means. She's just a challenge. She's just a challenge. And her and I butted heads. Does anybody butt heads with their kids, even when they're little, teeny? Oh my God, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. So it makes it very, very difficult. So, and I kind of went off on another tangent there, so now I got to come back in. Thank you. Okay, punishment hurts. This is just a real easy way to remember this. Punishment hurts. And if we're too strict with our kids and we don't bend at all, we're not flexible, and we're tough, tough is good. But if we cannot go with the flow a little bit, our kids are going to, and this is what's called the 4 rules. They're going to resent us. They're going to think it's not fair. All kids say that. It's not fair. And then I always would say, yep, life is tough, because it is tough. Life isn't fair, so why should we let them think that it is fair? But if we are so rigid in our rules, it's going to cause a lot of resentment. And you think you're being tough, trying to train them in the right way, and but maybe we're using sarcasm, or maybe we're not being respectful to the kids. Maybe we're being, I don't know, we're just not treating them appropriately. They're going to disrespect us. They're going to resent us. Teenagers resent us every couple minutes, They get upset with us. But what we're teaching the kids is teaching them that adults can't be trusted. They don't listen to us. Why should I talk to them? They're not listening. They won't see my point of view. Okay? And again, I tell parents all the time, and I have to tell myself this, how would I want to be treated? I wouldn't want to have my spouse or my boss be so rigid that he wouldn't listen to me or she wouldn't listen to me. I would feel some resentment. So I always tell the parents, how would you feel if someone treated you a certain way? The next thing that happens is they're going to get revenge. They'll think, well, yeah, you're bigger than me, you're tougher than me, you're telling me what to do now, but just wait. I'm going to get back. The next chance I get, I'm going to get back at you for this. They might not know that they're thinking this, but that's what they're doing. And then the rebellion starts. I had rebellion, and I was not tough with my daughter, but I still had the rebellion because she wanted more and more and more. And then finally I got really, really tough. And that caused a lot of resentment. And if you have a strong-willed child, bless you. If you have a strong-willed child, they're going to do the opposite no matter what you tell them. They have to use a little psychology and just kind of, I was going to say trick them. You don't want to do that. You don't want to trick your kids. But you just have to learn how to talk to your kids to make them cooperate with you. And then they'll be sneaky. And my daughter even said that, you're not going to catch him next time, And a couple times I did catch her, and she said, how did you do that? And I didn't want to say, hey, I just lucked out this time, I didn't ever tell her that. But what it's doing, if we're not showing our kids respect, and if we're not being flexible with our kids, what is that doing to their self-esteem? And if we catch them every single time doing something wrong and then punish them, and I use the word punishment because we get angry, and so we might hurt them emotionally, say things that we don't want to say. They come out of your mouth before you even think about it. It makes them feel horrible, and it makes them feel like they're awful people, when really it's just their actions that we're not happy about. But if we take the time to listen to our kids, sit down with them, talk it out, even if they're 4, you can talk to them and kind of explain things. Most kids want to please you when they're little. Most kids. Some kids are tougher than other ones, but they do want to please you. So we don't want them to have a lot of the resentment, a lot of the revenge. It doesn't mean that we have to say yes to our kids all the time. We're the parents, we're the adults. We can say no and set the limits, but they need to be fair. They need to be fair. And a lot of times a misbehaving child is a discouraged child. Oh, I saw a typo right there. And the best way to remove the motivation for misbehavior is to find a positive way to help the child feel that they belong and that they have significance. And we can help them reach that point by listening to them. Okay, and I'm not going to go through all of this, but if we want our kids to cooperate with us, there's 4 key things that you can do, is get into your child's world, and that means listening to them. Find out what they're interested in, you know, and in my other class, we take a test. It's kind of a test, and we're guessing what our children like. And then they go home, and we fill in all the blanks, and we take it home, and then they have the child, you cover up your answers, have the child answer the same questions, and then you compare them to see how close you are. And sometimes you're right on target, and it's like, yeah, I knew that. But a lot of times you'll be surprised. You don't know what it is. I have a couple handouts up here if you would like some handouts, and there's a couple chairs. Okay? Oh, okay. Well, there's some handouts right there, and here's a survey. If you can fill that out and get that back to me. Do you need a pencil? Okay. 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 Okay, that's fine. Okay, so we need to get into our child's world. We need to show understanding, and that's basically just listening. And it's okay if we can say, you know what, I don't get it. I don't understand what you're, you know, give them the opportunity to explain it to you, and they will explain it to you. So share your feelings. You know, say, well, you know, I know you really want to do this, but I don't feel comfortable. You know, I'm talking a teenager now, using my daughter's examples. But share your feelings, you know, and even with little kids, you can say, I know you want another cookie, but you've had 2, and supper is, you know, you don't need another cookie. I don't want you to get sick. You know, share your feelings. Explain why, instead of just saying, no, you can't have another cookie. You know, I was a softie. I always let it. I said, okay, you can have another cookie. It's okay. But then find a solution together. And if you use the cookie example, you can say, well, you can't have a cookie right now because supper's going to be ready in 20 minutes, but you can have one before you go to bed, you know, or ask them, you can't have a cookie now, what do you think we should do about it? And let them tell you. They might say, well, tomorrow I can have 2 or something, you know, but let them be a part of it, okay? And then this is just another handout on what discipline is. It means to teach, and this basically is for toddlers. What ages of kids do we have in this group? 2 through 9? Anybody have younger or older? How old? 9 months, okay. 10 months, okay. Okay. Anybody have teenagers right now? Okay. Is that fun? Is it easy? See a lot of rolling of the eyes. Where did we learn that? Okay. But this basically talks about toddlers. I had a really good friend of mine from my church, my son, who was, I said, a pretty cool kid. But when he was about 2, what do kids do when they're about 2? Huh? Terrific 2s. Terrific 2s, okay? Do they start saying no or mine? Okay. Pardon? Already? Oh, you're going to have a great time. You're going to have a great time. Okay, and how old is your child again? 9 months old. Doesn't like it when she tells him no. Throws a little tantrum. She's going to have a fun parenting time. So, okay. But kids say no, you know, because they're starting to express themselves and become independent. And that's frustrating, but this is what we want for our kids. We want them to become independent. We do not want them dependent on us for the rest of their lives. I have a sister who is a wonderful, wonderful, soft woman in her 70s, and her 50-year-old son was still living with her, with his children, because she made it so comfortable for them to be there. She cooked for them. She did their laundry for them. She was a marshmallow-type parent. She loved her children, and they loved her, but they did not grow to be an independent. All of her boys were not independent. And it's like, I will not. I will not have my kids with me when they're that age. If they have a problem and they need to come home for a little bit, that's different. But so we want them to become independent. So we shouldn't squash them when they're saying no. But on the other hand, this woman, she jumped all over my son, and she says, you will not talk to your mama that way. And he started to cry, and I got real defensive because he wasn't doing anything that wrong. He just told me no. And she says, Mary, if you don't get control of him before he's 2, you know, what is it going to be like when he's 4 and 6 and 12 and 17? He's going to be out of control. And it's like, he's just 2. He's fine, you know. But it made sense when you thought about it for a while. If you don't get some sort of control when they're young, and this is the way they are raised, then it's not going to be a surprise to them. When they're 15 and then you get really, really tough with them out of the blue, they're going to say, are you serious? Who are you to tell me what to do, you know? I learned that. I didn't listen to my friend. I listened to her with my son, but I didn't put it with my daughter. And because they're two different kids, 2 different personalities. Does anybody in here have any children who are just exactly the same as far as their personalities? You do? Okay, so they're different. They're different. Anybody have them where they're the same? They're just easygoing, or they're all hard? Every child is different, you know? And that's fine. We want everybody to be different. But we have to learn how to parent them differently. So, like I said before, if I just give my son a look, he'd stop. Getting back to the punishment part, if we punish too rigidly with the kids, they're going to, I lost my train of thought again for the second time on that same sentence. Maybe I'm not supposed to say it. I don't know. I'll come back to it later. It'll come back. So we do have to be different when we parent our children. So again, what is discipline? Discipline is teaching your child safe and appropriate behavior. And again, they gain self-control. They feel secure. You know, at some point, when we have children and we're parenting our children, it doesn't mean we're just going to do it for a short period of time until we get tired of doing it. And I think you all know that. But parenting is hard, and it lasts for many, 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 many years. You know, it changes as the children grow, but we can't just say, okay, I'm done. I'm tired of this. I can't deal with this anymore. And I know if you have teenagers, you might feel that way. It's like, I'm done. You're not listening to me, so I'm done. But you can't be done. You know, you can't give up on these kids. The kids who are acting out the most need you the most, you know, and it's tough. It's tough. And I've seen, even myself, it's like, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. At one point, it's like, okay, I guess I am done a little bit, because if you haven't gotten it by this time, you're 17 or whatever, and if you don't get it by now, maybe you're not going to get it until you're a parent yourself. But it doesn't mean I'm done being that parent. It just means that I have to do things a little differently, and we have to let them make their own choices and suffer the consequences. And if you have a strong-willed child, they're going to make a lot of mistakes. And they're going to suffer a lot of consequences before they finally get it. So that's why it's really good if we let the kids make little mistakes when they're little, so they can learn. It's like, oh, I don't want to do that again. You know, give the kids choices. I might be jumping ahead here, but give the kids choices so they can learn to make a choice. My sister, again, the way my parents parented us, they were very loving. They did everything for us. We didn't have to do a thing. We didn't have to do dishes. We didn't have to clean our room. It was great. It was the easiest way to live because we had no responsibility. So then when you become an adult, it's like, you can't have your bedroom like that anymore. You have to do dishes, you know. You learn, I think it's harder to learn, you know. We didn't have to make any choices. Our parents made all the choices for us. We didn't. My sister is in her 70s. She still does not drive a car because my parents drove her everywhere. She got married. Her husband drove her everywhere. Now her husband cannot drive, so her children drive her everywhere. Her sister drove her everywhere, you know. I had a boyfriend, and his mother told me, you're 16, no, you're 18. You need to get your driver's license. Your parents are going to die. You need to learn how to drive, you know. And it's like, yeah, that's right, you know. So my parents weren't happy about it, but when they became very ill, I was the only child that could drive them to the cancer treatments for their chemo and all of that stuff. You know, they were not training us to become independent people. They just wanted to be loving and take care of us forever. That's not realistic, you know. It's hard to let go of your kids, but at some point, that's what you're supposed to do, is let them go. Let them make their life. I was going to say mistakes, but let them make their life. Let them learn. So if we can give our kids the opportunities to make choices when they're little, they're going to learn to make good choices, hopefully. You know, if you want them to clean your room, clean their room, you know, give them, you know, do you want to clean your bedroom tonight or do you want to do it tomorrow before you watch cartoons? You know, give them a choice. Let them choose. A lot of times they'll say, I'll do it tomorrow. They didn't hear the part that you said before cartoons, you know, and you need to follow through with it. You need to follow through with it. It makes it tough, but they'll learn. The next time they'll probably do it the night before or whatever you're asking them to do. If it's cold outside and if you have a strong-willed child and they don't want to wear their coat, you give them a choice. Do you want to carry your coat or do you want to wear it? You know, don't give them a choice that you're not happy with, you know. They'll carry their coat, and they'll carry it every day because they're stubborn, and they'll think that maybe you've forgotten that you gave them that choice, and then the next thing you know, they're wearing their coat because they're tired of being cold, you know. Yes? Oh, did everybody hear that? They have to pay their own doctor bill if they got sick. If it's their choice. Did that ever happen? Did you have to follow through and have them pay? And they had to pay for the doctor? Whoa, how did they like that? They did not like that. Was it you? Isn't it fun to say things like that when the child is right, the adult child is right here with you? You know, this is being videotaped, and so the few things that I've said about my daughter, I know someday she's going to hear this. And it's going to make her really mad, you know. I teach a spirited child class, and I took my daughter, we all brought our kids with us for one night so we could see each other's strong-willed children, so we could say, oh, I'm not the only one, you know. And so I had my daughter, and I'm up here talking, and she's behind me drawing a picture on the blackboard, and all of a sudden the group starts laughing, and I'm thinking, oh, they just think I'm funny. And then I turned around and looked. She had drawn a picture of a tree with apples on it, and she wrote, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So it's like, yeah, I'm stubborn. I'm, you know, just as strong-willed as she is. she's worse than me, you know. But but it was fun, you know, and everybody says, oh, now I understand all the examples you've been showing us, you know, telling us about and stuff. But we all have some challenges with our kids. So discipline is a process. It doesn't happen overnight. And you have to do it over and over and over again till the kids remember. And you've got to remember, children, it takes many, many years before their brain is fully developed. And some people, some research says it's not fully developed. Some it never happens, you know. Are you finding that? You know? But in some areas, she's probably a lot smarter than you. Yeah. So, you know, yeah. So, but sometimes, some research says your brain isn't fully developed until they're 25. So what kind of choices are these young people making before they're fully developed? You know? Don't we get married before we're 25 a lot of the times, you know? You know, what were we thinking? You know, so discipline is a process. It does not happen overnight, like I said before. And we're the role models for these kids, and I can't stress that enough. They're watching us, and we can choose to be a good role model for our kids or a bad role model. What do we want to be, you know? My father was a yeller, very loving person, but he scared me as a child, you know. He'd look at me and I'd cry, you know. But he was a yeller. So guess what kind of person I am? I'm a yeller. Even that little voice is saying, shut up, shut up, shut up. It's like, no, I have to say this because she's making me mad, you know. So guess what my daughter is? She's a yeller. She's also a door slammer. Where did she learn that? Me, you know. I had custody. She learned it from me, you know. So we have to look at ourselves. And sometimes it's like, I don't know where she got that from, you know, because they have their own personality. They have their own personality. So, but like I said, we can choose to be a good role model or a bad role model. And it doesn't mean that we're going to be a good role model all of the time. We're going to make mistakes. And if we do make a mistake, we need to apologize, don't we? So we need to apologize because that's being a good role model to the kids, because that's teaching them that if they make a mistake, they should apologize for it. And it's not just them saying, oh, sorry. You know, like we tell our kids. If they hit somebody or take somebody's toy, we say, now tell them you're sorry. They don't mean it when they say sorry. They didn't want to say it because they're not sorry. But they think if they say sorry, they won't be in trouble anymore. You know, so you got to figure out what do you want from your kids. Okay, the most important thing is when we're disciplining, we need to keep the love connection with our kids. We have to show them love. We have to show them empathy for their feelings. And that means trying to understand what they're going through. Trying to understand. You guys are just having a great time. I love it. I know. You always do, and I miss you when you're not in class. Ended up in Novi. Mom, I'm late for work. I don't know where I am. I have no gas. So she had my car. I couldn't go get her, you know. So, yeah, strong-willed child, yeah. She learned she can read a map now. She fills the gas tank now. So, okay. So on this one page, I've got discipline for 1- and 2-year-olds, and it talks about the children at that age, what they're going through, okay, and how we have to keep the kids safe. So I'm not going to read through all of that. Discipline for 3 or 4 years old, it's a little bit different, but it's still a lot of the same. And then it went on to discipline for 5-year-olds. And on this sheet, I didn't include adolescents or teenagers because you can just go back to the 1 and 2 year olds. It's pretty much the same. So, not everything on there. Hopefully they can use more than just simple sentences, you know. But at times they can't. Their mind isn't working. No. Yeah, as they're slamming the door, you know. Sometimes they don't have any words. So, so a lot of times the misbehavior, not to make excuses for our kids, but we've got to figure out what is causing this. You know, what's going on with them. You know, see if you can figure out what's going on instead of just jumping all over them. Like, for example, if a child comes home and there's a note from school that they've been kicked off the bus for fighting, you know, and so they walk in the door and you jump right on them. What is our rule? I told you cannot ever hit. You know, you're grounded forever because, you know, this is our rule, you cannot fight. Instead of saying, what's going on? What happened? And then if you give the child a chance to explain what happened, it doesn't excuse the behavior, but maybe you can understand why they did what they did, you know, and then you can address it. But if you just start right in with a harsh punishment or hurtful words, it's shutting them down, and they're not going to talk to you at all. You'll never find out what happened until later, and then you're going to feel really bad, you know. You need to get to the bottom of it. And it doesn't mean that you march right to the school and say, listen, my child did not do this. You know, our rule is you cannot hit, so he wouldn't do it. You can't make excuses for your kids, but you owe them the respect to find out what is going on with them. You know, so it talks about the different types of misbehaviors and lying, hitting, yelling, biting. And we just need to get calm and deal with it. Yes? And her son is 9 months old, and she's already having the hitting and the biting and the tantrums. And he gets it from her, she said. What did your parents do with you when you were doing these activities? Hitting and biting and yelling and tantrums. And do you remember? Are your parents just kind of smiling and saying, yeah, payback? Yeah? It's important, you know, cognitively, does a 9-month-old really understand? Can you really sit down and have a discussion with him about his behavior? Yeah, probably not, you know. But it doesn't mean that you wait until he's able to understand what you're talking about, you know. You just start right in, you know, no, or, you know, whatever. And you know, and your body language and everything they get a feel for, you know, what you're feeling. My nephew, he grew up thinking his name was No Aaron, you know. Because they were very sweet, loving people, and they just say, No, Aaron. So you'd ask him, he was going into preschool, and he said, what's your name? And he says, No, Aaron. You know, so he was listening. So, no, you don't wait until they get older, but, you know, that's hard. Has anybody here had a 9-month-old misbehaving like this? Huh? Yeah. Can you remember what you did? You know, if you ask someone that was raised in the 50s, they could tell you, yeah, I know what I'd do to him, you know. Well, we can't do things like that with our kids any longer. That's not positive discipline, you know. The main thing is you need to keep your child safe. You need to keep other children safe around him. Just you. He has some resentment. And he's 9 months old, and he's climbing out of the crib. You have a very strong-willed child. trying to open doors. A lot of times these strong-willed children are extremely intelligent, and they can figure those doorknobs out. They really can. Yeah. They're smart. And so you have to look at it positively and say, oh my God, I have a very intelligent child here, you know. Okay, a 9-month-old that is 30 pounds. And how tall? Almost 3 feet tall. You know, and when children are large like that, they soon learn that they can make people do what they want them to do, you know. So, and you're laughing. No, that's okay. You can relate to it. See, you know, and so you can visualize this child, and that would be difficult, you know. And other people are going to look at you saying, why can't you get your 2-year-old under control here? Why is he, yeah. Yeah. It's difficult. It's very difficult. And so a lot of people are going to be upset with you and stuff. The main thing is you've got to keep him safe. You've got to let him know that, nah, this is not appropriate. You cannot throw things, you know. And you have to remove him from the situation. And if that means leaving the restaurant or leaving the store, making it very inconvenient for you, you have to do it. It's tough. It's like, no, I'm hungry. I want to eat this meal, you know. But you need to just, because eventually he'll say, oh, I'm not getting what I want here, you know. And so you just have to say, sorry, sweetie, get him in the car seat, and he can probably undo all of the latches on the car seat stuff. Okay. Okay, he'll figure it out. Keep it low, keep it low. So, yeah, you just have to remove him, and it's inconvenient for you, but you have to do it. And if you're at the grocery store, and it's very important that you get those groceries because you need the milk, you need the diapers or whatever, you have to have a backup plan. You need to leave the store, call your friend and say, hey, I left the cart in the middle of the aisle. Will you go and get my groceries for me? You have to have a backup plan. And the backup plan could be your friend is sitting out in the parking lot in the car with the car seat. When he acts up, you take him out, put him in that car seat, and let your neighbor take him home. You finish your meal at the restaurant, whatever. Have a backup plan, just so he gets it through his head. At 9 months, they can start to figure out, it's like, oh, you know. Yeah, because he doesn't want to be changed. Yeah. And say, sorry, we're going to do this no matter what, as long as you're not hurting him, you know. So, okay. I feel sorry. You know, this is hard. Okay. Younger children need parents who will supervise them closely. We need to keep the kids safe, you know. And we arrange their whole life. We have parties at the house. We have play dates. We do all of this stuff. We have control over their life when they're younger. As they get older, we need to let go a little bit, let them make some more of their choices. But our goal is still to keep them safe. And it doesn't mean that just because they want to go to a party, it doesn't mean they get to go, you know. It's like, no, you're not going to her house, but she can come over to our house. You still have some control, but you need to let go a little bit, you know. So, and looking back now, I honestly feel that it's easier to be a parent of a really younger child. The babies, the toddlers, the terrific twos, because this is a positive class. It's not a negative, you know, they're not terrible. It's terrific. And even the 3s and 4-year-olds, those are a lot easier. You know, it's fun, they're learning things, they want to please you. As they get older and they're in school and they have the friends that sometimes you can't control their friends and stuff, then their values change a little bit. And they're not necessarily the values that you have in your home. So it makes it a little more difficult. I would be a parent to the babies on through maybe 7, 8, 9 years old in a heartbeat. And I can remember my sister-in-law saying, you know, she was just the opposite. She says, I'll give you my kids until they hit puberty, and then you give them back to me. I'll deal with them, you know. And I said, fine, I'll give you my kids when they're the teenagers. I'll take your babies, you know. So we all have our preferences on the children. So, but now when they're older, 20s and stuff, I like that age too. That's fun again, you know. So we'll pass on to that. Again, just more information about discipline, 7 keys to the discipline. It's really important to, like I said, give the kids choices, but then have consequences for their actions. And a really great consequence, there's natural consequences and there's logical consequences. Natural consequences are if your rule is that the kids have to park their bike up at the barn at the end of the day, you know, or put it in the barn or the garage or whatever, that's the rule. And if they don't, one of the natural consequences it would rain, and then everything would get all rusty, you know. That's a great natural consequence. Let them do that, even though in your mind you're saying, yeah, but I paid $80 for that bike, you know. You maybe bought the first bike, and the natural consequences are that it's going to get all rusted. And if you have a strong-willed child, they're going to say, you have to buy me a new bike. And it's like, no, sweetie, I bought the first one. You're buying the second one. That's a natural consequence. Another natural consequence is if they leave their bike behind your car and you back over it, that's a great natural consequence. You know, as a parent, I probably should have looked behind my car before I backed up, knowing my kids, but I didn't. And I ran over their bike, you know. I bought the first bike, they had to buy the third bike, you know. So that's a natural consequence. A logical consequence, I can just pull this one right out of the air here. You have a child that has their learning permit, their driver's permit, and they want to go out at 3 o'clock in the morning to toilet paper somebody's house. And so they borrow somebody's car at 3 o'clock in the morning without permission, and they get busted by the police for being out after curfew, for being 14, for not having a driver's license, and got in trouble for toilet papering the house. That's a pretty good consequence right there, you know. But the second consequence when the parent found out was I took her permit away from her, you know. That's very logical. She wasn't responsible enough to have a permit, obviously, so she wasn't responsible enough to own one. So she gave that back to me. And her thought to me was, you don't ever want me to learn to drive. It's like, oh, yeah, I do, but it's going to have to be on hold for a while. That's a logical consequence. And it was easy. And some consequences are not easy to come up with. You can't think of something. It's okay to not have an answer. You can tell your child, you know, you're 57 minutes late curfew, you know. I don't know what I'm going to do about it right now. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to think about it. Don't worry. I'll get back to you and let you know. Let them worry about it for days. This is not fair to you, is it? I'm sorry. Think about it. Oh, see, he was telling you. Yeah. Yeah, sweat. See, that's what I wanted. I called the police and said, why did you let her go? Why didn't you take her? Oh, we know she's a nice girl. Yeah, he says she's so cute. They learn. Okay, this is great. Are you showing respect to her by sharing these stories? You are helping parents, but this is the love of your life. This is your daughter. Are you showing? Of course. So are you being, show some empathy. How is she feeling right now? Okay. I don't know if that got on the video or not about the episode, but there was an episode with a car, and there were consequences for that episode with the car. Can I just let it go at that? Okay. Okay. A consequence happens when a child makes a choice. Consequences are a way to set limits and give choices. And consequences show respect for the child, you know. So, and it must fit the misbehavior. Taking my daughter's permit away from her was a very logical, and I was so proud of myself because it was easy. It was a very logical thing, and logic doesn't come real easy to me sometimes. This was easy. But then I took it 3 or 4 steps more. I went overboard. I took her phone away from her. I grounded her. You know, I did everything. And I was the one that was suffering the consequences then. It made it rough on me. I should have just done the permit because that hurt her emotionally. You know, she couldn't believe I would do that. I think it's pretty safe to say she will never borrow another car again without permission, you know. She thinks it's borrowing it. I tried to tell her differently that it was not borrowed because she didn't have permission. She still doesn't get that part of it, and I don't know why. I don't know why. So, okay, but we need to be firm and kind with our consequences. I'm sorry, but because of the choice that you made, this is what I have to do. Let them know that it's their choice. You're not the bad person. It's because of the choice that you made. This is why this is happening. So then another page that I have here is 10 steps to positive discipline. And we've talked about some of it anyway, so I'm not going to go over that with you. And a lot of this stuff is repetition, but that's how we learn. You know, what I'm saying here tonight, you may not remember, or you might think it's hogwash or whatever. But if it's written, then you're going to say, you know what, that makes sense now. You know, so that's why I like to give all the handouts. The one page here, I should explain that a lot of this information that I have here comes from Parenting with Love and Logic. It's a whole course. I teach those courses. And another one is Positive Discipline by Jane Nelson, and I've been trained by her. And so that's what a lot of these handouts are. And then there's a couple other handouts, and I think it's listed on there where they come from. But here's 10 ways to nurture your child. And I like this really well. We need to spend time with our kids, and we need to pick and choose our battles. A lot of times as a parent, especially if we're stressed or if we have a strong-willed child, everything is a battle. Everything is a battle. Some things you just got to let them go. You know, it's like, is this going to matter in 4 years or 4 minutes, or is it just ticking me off right now? You know, so sometimes we have to give ourselves time out. We need to just go away and think about it before we say something inappropriate. One of the things with positive discipline is we need to encourage our children. Encouragement is extremely important, and just like the difference between punishment and discipline, there's a difference between praise and encouragement. Praise is great in some things, like, you know, you give your child a high five when they've done something great, You know, that's fine. It makes them feel good. I've seen little teeny kids do the high five. You know, it's just something fun to do. You're acknowledging something cool that the kids did. We don't want our kids to be praise junkies where, you know, they want to be praised every 2 minutes about, look, I smiled, you know, or, you know, look what I did, you know. When they're little, they want you to watch them all the time when they're swinging, when they're building sand castles and stuff. But we don't want them to need praise from us every minute of their life, because we're not going to be available to them. Their teachers are not going to praise them every single second. Their husbands or their wives are not going to praise them every second, you know. We want to teach the kids to do things for themselves because it makes them feel good, to help other people or to try something new. That's called encouragement. Encouragement goes a lot farther than praise. So this handout, it comes from Jane Nelson again with the positive discipline. And I like it because it gives you the dictionary definition of praise and the encouragement definition. Praise expresses favorable judgment. We're making a judgment on the kids, you know, to glorify and to make them think that they're perfect. Some kids are pretty close to perfect, we think, you know. But if we keep saying, oh, your mama's little angel or your mama's precious princess or something, you know, that gets old after a while, you know. And you don't want them growing up thinking that they're just perfect, because they're not, you know. And so it's a judgment on our part. It doesn't mean that we can't think that our kids are special and everything. But encouragement it gives them courage to try something new. And the way that I can always remember encouragement is think back when your kids were just learning to walk, okay? How did we encourage them? Maybe with your child, he just started walking. He didn't need any encouragement. He just knew he was going to do it. But what do we do when our kids are learning to walk? Don't we get down on their level and say, come on, you can do it, come to mama, or something? We're encouraging them. We're giving them courage to take that step and to come to us. You know, that's what's important. They will remember that. They will do that. And it's to stimulate them to try new things. You know, we want to encourage them to learn to roller skate or whatever, you know. We want them to try new things. We don't want these kids to be afraid to try anything. My sister and I were afraid to try anything because I think my mother thought we were going to get hurt, so she never encouraged us to do anything, you know. And so as an adult, when I was trying new things, finally, I was afraid to do things. I was very afraid. But I had a husband who just says, I know you can do it. You're not stupid. You can do this. And so I tried a lot of new things, you know. I raced a motorcycle, and I beat him, you know. It was great. I drove a semi, and my mother is just was horrified at this. It's like, you're doing what? Well, he's just an awful person to make you do that and stuff, you know. But I grew as an adult, you know. So we all need encouragement. And as adults, we still need encouragement. So it's very, very important. And we want the kids to learn how to try new things on their own because we're not always going to be there for them. Okay? And then, so it gives you what it addresses. The praise is we're telling them that they're a good girl or a good boy. Well, don't we say that to our dogs? Oh, good girl, good boy. They're not dogs. These are our children. We're trying to teach them something. So with encouragement, we're telling them that what they're doing is a great job. I like the way you color inside the lines, you know, and that will encourage them to try harder to make sure that they color in the lines, if that's important to us. To some teachers, I think it's still important to them. Okay, so it tells you, it's telling them the encouragement is respectful. So that's just really, really important. Okay? The next page says helicopters and drill sergeant and consultants. That's the third page there. This is the different parenting styles, and this comes from Love and Logic. So a helicopter, the examples that I've given you about my parents, they were the helicopter. They wanted to make sure that we were safe. Even when we were 23 years old, they still wanted us to be safe. They didn't want us to try anything new, okay? What they were telling us was, you can't live without me. You can't do this on your own, you know? And I believed it. It's like, oh, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. You need me to protect you. That's what that type of parent is doing, you know? You're not smart enough to do this without your mother, you know? And I kid my my son, do you need mama to take care of that for you? You know, if somebody's mean to him or something, you know? No, Mom, I can do this. I'm 21. I can do this, you know. So I kid him about that. Okay, the other type of parent is a drill sergeant. Some of us are like that. And at times it's important to say, no, you will not go out into the road, you know. That's important. But we tell them how to do it, when to do it, how often to do it, you know, and you don't give them any choices. And what that is telling the kids is, again, you're stupid. You can't make it without me. I have to tell you what to do because otherwise you're going to mess up. And that's going to cause a lot of resentment because they're going to do just the opposite. This is what we should strive to be, is a consultant. Okay? And it could be that we're all three of these at times. You know, when you're under a lot of stress, you might be more of a drill sergeant. When you're afraid for your kids, you might be a helicopter, and it's like, I don't want you climbing on that, you know. But we don't want our kids to be afraid. We want them to try. So we need to be a consultant, be there to give them advice, to guide them along, to help them make their own choices. And what this tells the kids, it's that it's best for you to do your own thinking, because the quality of your life depends on the choices that you're making. So you need to make good choices. With my daughter away at college, I'm done parenting her pretty much. I don't know what she's doing. I know what she tells me. I know what her grade point average is, so I think she's doing extremely well. She's working. But what I tell her now is, just make a good choice. Make good choices. Because this is going to affect you for the rest of your life. You know, and I tell a lot of kids about this Facebook thing. I'm a friend of my daughter's on Facebook because I kind of want to see what she's doing and stuff. And some of the things that I'm not, it's like, I don't think that's a good choice, you know, but it's her life. But I try to tell these kids, you got to be careful what you say on Facebook and how you come across, because a lot of employers now are looking at Facebook to see what character you have. And this will bite you, and it will follow you. It doesn't go away. It's out there in whatever that is, the cyber whatever, you know. It'll never go away. And so you have to be careful. And we tell that to our kids about their reputation. It's really hard to get your reputation back. So the choices you make may affect you the rest of your life. Some might be great, and others might make your life very hard for the rest of your life. They may become a parent way too soon, you know. So if we can keep the consultant type of parent, where we keep the doors open of communication, we can talk to our kids, help them make good choices from the time they're little till they grow up, their life will be a lot easier. Our job will be a lot easier. It's not easy being a drill sergeant all the time. It's not easy being a helicopter all the time, where we're worried to death about our kids. At some point, we've got to let it go. So a consultant is what we should strive for. The other things that you picked up in the other room, March is Parenting Awareness Month, so I passed out a lot of things. If you're a daycare provider or work in a center or something, the one thing that I passed out is words your child needs to hear. And what I tell people is put that on your refrigerator or put it on the door where your parents see it all the time, to remind them that they need to tell their kids how special they are, because families are busy and they might not have enough time or they think that they don't need to tell their kids this, you know. And it's a reminder for us also. We need to even tell our adult children, you know, I'm lucky to have you. I used to have a magnet on my refrigerator that said 101 ways to praise your child. And one day when my daughter was not real happy with me, I heard her talking to her friend going over that list, and she says, she's never said this to me, and she's never said this to me, and she's never said this to me. So I waited a few days, and then every so often I would pick something off that list that she had checked off, and I would say that to her, and she'd say, oh, just stop, you know. So, but I went through all 101, and I have said those to her. What she does with it, that's up to her. So life is a lot easier if we can just choose our battles and help our kids to learn to make good choices. It just makes life easier for us. It makes it easier for them. Does anybody have any questions or other comments or things to share? Did I address what you thought this class was going to be about? Or it's like, nah, I've heard it all before. Or no, that doesn't work. I've had parents tell me, yep, I tried that, it never worked. And then I would say, well, did you try this? Yep, tried that, didn't work. Just because you tried it once, it doesn't mean it's going to work, you know? You got to do it over and over and over again. It's a long process. And you get tired of it, you know? So, oh, good.
How do you know when they should know what you want, you know, as far as being self-sufficient, real what it comes to? How do you know you're just words and not of that, either is or is?
Yeah. Okay, the question was, how do you know when you've done your job being a parent and making your child be self-disciplined and self-sufficient? So they understand and they know how to take care of themselves when they get to be that age. You know, I think that varies from child to child. You know, some kids never, not to be negative about it, but okay. Well, okay, if it's
Or an example would be, all right, I have to take a shower. I want you to take care of your clothes, whatever you decide from. You come out and,
oh yeah, because they're kids. They're
why didn't you take care of me?
huh? Yeah. What it is you need to be consistent, and if that's the rules that you've had forever and it's not a surprise to them, is then they have to suffer the consequences, you know. And you know what I said before is we have to do these things over and over and over again to get them. Thank you. I remember. Thank you. You know, and it does. And you might think, oh my God, how many times have I told you? You know, but at one point, you know, with the rules, and if they're posted and she can read and she knows you've been consistent, you've never changed anything, then you can say, basically what the Love and Logic people say is, you know, you've said it once, you've said it twice. You don't have to keep saying it over and over and over again. They know what it is. You've been consistent. You've not changed it. And so it's like, sweetie, sorry, you didn't, you didn't do blah, blah, blah. And so when they ask to go to a friend's house, it's like, oh, I wish you could go. But, you know, Tuesday you didn't take care of your clothes in the bathroom. So I'm sorry, you can't go. Because that she's suffering a consequence, and it's going to trigger something in her mind. You know, and it's like, oh, I better take care of my clothes, you know. So just say, use empathy and say, oh, I really would love to have you go to Bethany's birthday party, but you know what? I can't let you go. you didn't do whatever. Okay, so they're on medication. Right. Well, like as far as the medication, they need to be able to do this themselves, and stuff, you know. And you want them to suffer a little consequence, but that could be a very serious consequence, so you don't. Yeah. And so then we're not doing our job by keeping them safe, so we've got to make sure they take their medication. But I liked what they said, this other family, was they had to, that child, another child, had to pay the hospital, had to pay the doctor bill.